The fillet feature tool in Solidworks allows you quite a few options to create different fillets. For this video we'll be looking at the manual tab here, and in a later video I'll cover the fillet expert, but for now we'll just take a look at the manual tab here. And the first fillet we're going to look at is the face fillet. And this allows you to create a fillet between two separate faces or between multiple sets of faces. For our first face, we're going to choose the top surface there. And I'm going to choose my inside surface. By default, generally this comes in as partial preview. That'll show you the preview along a single edge. In this case, we only have one edge being filleted, so it shows that single edge. The partial preview will show up whether or not the fillet will actually complete. It'll populate what it thinks the fillet is going to look like. The full preview, on the other hand, shows the preview at all edges, and it won't show up if the feature is going to fail. That's why I tend to stick with the full preview, because if the fillet ends up blank, for example if I change this to 2.5 inches, we can see that that fillet feature is most likely going to fail because we don't see a preview. I'm going to go ahead and set this to 1.1 inches. And then before we complete this fillet, there's several other options we can play with at the bottom. We can set whether the curvature is continuous or not. We can also set this to a constant width if we want as well. If we wanted to add faces, we could also do that. You can see with the full preview versus the partial preview that you can tell that this edge isn't going to receive a fillet because it doesn't show up in the full preview. Whereas the partial preview, you'll have no idea how that fillet's actually going to look. So we'll go back to the full preview, delete out the two extra faces, and click OK to complete the fillet. Next, we're going to use a full round fillet. And what this allows you to do is create a full round, for example on this face, without having to create a cut or without having to fillet both edges and guess what the depth would be for that fillet. You can simply select out the three sides of the fillet, and it'll create that full round fillet. You want to make sure that the face to fillet is in the center and the two static faces on either side. Next, we'll use the most commonly used fillet, the constant radius. We'll set this to 0.1 inches. And we want to fillet all the edges on these two faces. We could do that by either selecting out the two faces themselves, or we can select out all the edges, or a combination of a face and the remaining edges here. You'll notice that after I select this top edge, it shows the entire tangent edge there. It's because the tangent propagation option is selected. If we wanted to remove that out, we could uncheck that option, and you can see what that preview looks like. Lastly, we'll choose that bottom edge. And in this case, we don't really have to worry about the fillet options because they don't apply to fillets this small. The overflow type, for example, allows you to choose to keep an edge or keep a surface if the fillet is going to eliminate that edge or surface, or you can let Solidworks choose the option if that edge or surface is eliminated. The last kind of fillet is the variable radius fillet, and this allows you to vary the radius along an edge at certain point intervals. So we'll go ahead and select the center edge, and to assign a radius to the points, we have to go ahead and click on all three of these. We could also add more points if we want. In this case, we'll leave the number of instances at 3. I'm going to go ahead and choose to set unassigned. Set all would do the same in this case since we have all of them selected. And now they're all set to 0.1 inches. I'm going to click on P2, modify this to 0.5, and click Enter. P1 will be set to 1/4 inch, and P3 It's going to have a radius of 0.2 inches. Once again, I'll click enter to set the change. And from there, I'll approve the change and exit the fillet. Lastly, we'll create a chamfer on several of the edges here. We'll choose the chamfer tool and select out the center edge there and this outside edge. And we can see that the tangent propagation is once again selected there. If we unselect it, you can see that this back edge would be the only part to receive the chamfer on that side. But you'll also notice that the entire internal edge here is still chamfered. Because it's an internal edge, it chamfers the entire edge. It doesn't allow you to chamfer just a section of it. So I'll go ahead and turn tangent propagation back on. Set the distance to 0.2. And we can leave the angle at 45 degrees. And I'll go ahead and click OK.